Okay, so we're starting in class 7. So I lied just a little bit. We're actually going to go ahead and do the 3 last ones. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get those notes for vertical, complementary, and supplementary. We'll go ahead and get them in the notebook, and then we'll kind of use tomorrow as like a day to practice. Why? Because I think you can handle it. That's why. So the first one, we're going to use these pictures up here at the top to kind of figure out the first one. So I'm glad you grabbed the calculator, because what you're going to do is if this angle right here is 65, maybe I'll zoom in a little bit here. If that angle is 65, can we figure out what the angle right next to it is? Okay, so with your calculator, yesterday we learned that 2 angles that form a line add up to how many degrees? 180. So if you could take that calculator, right, this is 180 degrees. This is a straight line right here. It's 180 degrees. That's 180. So what's 180 minus 65? 115. Thank you. So 115 is going to go right here. Now, I drew this straight line when I drew it, right? I drew my line there. But is there any reason we couldn't do the exact same thing with this straight line? That's still 180 degrees, right? Still a straight line. So if this side over here is 65, what's this one?
115.
It's 115 again. Okay, 180 minus 65 is 115. That's 115 again. So from this same thing, 180 minus 65, that's 115. Do you want to take a guess at what the other angle is? 65. That's exactly right. So that last angle is 65. Okay, the angles that are across from each other, okay, these ones here, have a special name, but hopefully you can see what is true about them. This angle that's across from the 65 is 65, so they're equal. This angle that's across from the 115 is also 115, so they're equal. That is one of your new rules for today. So if this is 95 here, this 95 degrees here, I can go across from that 95 and say this will also be 95. Okay, but then how am I going to find the one next door? To find the one next door, those will add up to 180, right? So 180 minus, oh, there's a 0 in 180. Get that in there. Minus 95 is 85. Thank you. It's 85 degrees. So we'll throw in an 85 degrees on both the left and the right angles. Okay, those angles that are across from each other have a name. What's the name? This one right here. So we'll come down and we'll fill out this vertical angle. So we just figured out vertical angles. That's what we just did. So vertical angles are 2 angles across from each other. Get those in, 2 angles across from each other when you have those 2 lines making an X, right? So when 2 lines make an X, you have angles that form across from each other, and those are called vertical angles. So we say when 2 lines intersect. That's the academic word for when 2 lines cross. That's what that means. Okay, so then what? That's their name. What does that mean for us? What can we do with that? Okay, I have a name for it, but what does that mean? That means when you see vertical angles, you can take those 2 angles that are vertical and set them equal. So if you see 2 angles that are vertical, they are equal. Okay, that is the vertical angles theorem. So there's got to be one word with every piece of vocabulary when we're doing that general equation and that reason. It's either definition of or it's that thing theorem. Okay, so some of them are theorems, some of them are postulates. Doesn't really matter the difference between the two, but this one would be a theorem, not definition of. So let's practice that here below. Okay, so what you're going to get, it's going to look just like this. You're going to get a picture with two angles across from each other. Okay, if you haven't figured this out yet, let me key you in. You are either setting things equal or you're adding things together. Those are your two options. So when you look at any problem, you're either setting the things equal or you're adding them. Now, when we're doubling, we're just adding it twice, right? So it's kind of the same thing. So you're either setting them equal or you're adding them together. In this case, are these two going to add up to something? Well, I don't have another number for it to add up to. So these two are going to be equal to each other. So you're going to see this. These are across from each other. If they're across from each other, they're equal. So let's go ahead and write out that equation. So 13x minus 15 equals 10x plus 6. Okay, then we do a little algebra. When you do your algebra, one step at a time. If you're not getting an answer that's on the back of your homework, because you should be checking every single one, make sure you are taking your time to do one step at a time, okay? So we're going to go ahead and subtract this 10 over. So we'll go minus 10. Minus 10. So that's 3x equals 6. Now let's get rid of this 15. Add 15. 6 and 15 is 21. So 21 divided by 3 is 7. Okay. Am I done? It says solve for x. Yes, done. Circle it, done. So now you have gotten yourself to, from the 3 that we already know, we know angle bisector, okay? We know angle addition, and we know linear pair. That's the first 3. We've added on vertical angles. It's not a tough one, but it's a new word, okay? So we've gotten ourselves all the way to a 2 if we know those 4 so far, okay? Now we need to come up here and do a general equation. The general equation is just, what did you do? Well, I did this 13x minus 15. 13x minus 15 was right here. So that's angle REG. Okay, so that's going to be measure of angle REG. And then on the other side is angle AET. And that's your general equation. Take what you did and write what angles they are. Okay, so this angle, this 13 minus 15 came from this angle. So I wrote that angle down, wrote an equal sign, and then I wrote the other angle. What's my reason? Vertical angles theorem. Okay, we don't want to do definition of. It's not going to say these are vertical angles. So then we're not going to use definition of. Okay, we're going to use vertical angles theorem. You're going to be given a picture. That's it. Only a picture for this one. The only one that probably won't tell you anything in the problem. It'll just give you a picture. Okay, that's 4. So then I'm going to give you 5 and 6. Okay, so here's the last 2. And then we'll turn it over to the back side and we'll figure out which one we're supposed to be using. Okay, so the last 2, complementary. Most of the time, words in geometry mean the same thing as they do kind of somewhere else, like adjacent. Adjacent somewhere else means next to. It means the same thing in geometry. Complementary does not. It's a very specific word. So complementary means 2 angles that are they don't have to be next to each other. Okay. That are next to each other. Sorry. sorry, the verbiage on here is a little bit different. And I'm going to change this can be are 90 degrees. Sorry, they're next to each other, going to be 90 degrees. There will be no picture. Nothing. The word complementary literally means they're going to add to 90 degrees. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this sentence and we're going to translate it into math. This is telling you, this right here is telling you exactly what to do. Okay, here's what it's going to say. This thing and this thing together are 90 degrees. That's what it's telling you. It's telling you what to do right here in the very first sentence. Okay? So if it says this angle and this angle are complementary, you're going to take those two angles and you're going to set them equal to 90 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to take this angle, which is DEF. I'm going to add it to this angle, which is 6x plus 5, and set it equal to 90 degrees. So it's going to look like this. 43 plus 6x plus 5 equals 90 degrees. Okay, so we've been doing a lot of solving. In this particular case, hopefully we're good with the fact that we're going to combine like terms, right, before we solve. So we're going to combine my 43 and my 5 to be 48 before I go forward and solve my equation. So we've got 6x plus 48 equals 90. Then I'll subtract 48 and divide. So if I subtract 48, that's 42. Divide that, I get 7. It does just say find x, so I'm good there. What's my equation and what's my reason? My equation is right here. It's angle DEF plus angle LMN equals 90. That's your equation. It's right there from that first line. It's that same thing. And then my reason. Okay, so let's get the equation in here. Measure angle comes right from that first line, DEF plus measure of angle LMN, 90 degrees. What you're going to start finding is when the directions of the problem have a vocabulary word in it. Here's the directions. This and this are complementary. That's a vocabulary word. When you see a vocabulary word in the directions, the reason is definition of that word. Okay, so this one, because it said complementary, we had it before where it said midpoint, definition of midpoint. It said bisects, definition of an angle bisector. Complementary, definition of complementary. Okay. It just takes practice knowing that complementary means 90 degrees. That doesn't seem too terrible, except there's another word, supplementary, that means 180. So the question is going to be, when you go to the test, are you going to remember which one is which? Okay, so are you going to remember which one adds to 90 and which one adds to 180? I'm going to tell you how I remember it in just a second. Okay, so we've got two angles that add, here we go, add to 180, and they can be next to each other. That's how it's supposed to go. Sorry, next to each other. Same thing, I want this angle plus this angle. The word are in math is just the plural for the word is. I know it's a little English lesson there. But the word is in math means to put an equal sign. X is 7. You would put an equal sign. So this word are means equals. And then supplementary means 180. The hardest part is going to be, wait, which one is 180 again? Is complementary 180? Is supplementary 180? I can't remember. Okay, that's going to be the hardest part. So we're going to do the same thing again. You're going to do this one, and that means plus this one and this one equals 180. Okay, so we've got 4x minus 4 equals 180, and trust me, x equals 46. Okay, so I went through that really fast because I know you're going to get your own practice doing the algebra, and algebra isn't what we're learning here. Okay, so x equals 46. It does just say find x, so you're done. The general equation, same thing. We're going to say this one, this angle, measure of angle DEF plus measure of angle LMN equals, and then it has to be 180. Okay, if it says supplementary, we're going to do 180, so we're going to write 180 in the general equation. So we'll go ahead and write in the two angles. Are these the same angles as before? Yep. Okay, so I'm going to say that one more time in case, because sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I just zone out for a second and I don't catch something. So I'm going to say it again. If there's a vocabulary word in the problem, here's a vocab word in the problem. The reason is always going to be definition of that vocabulary word. And that gets you about 50% of the reasons, because we have bisects for angle bisector, we have complementary, definition of complementary, and we have supplementary, which is definite. So that's about half of the reasons we'll have a definition of. Okay, let's turn the page. And the question of today is going to be, do I set them equal or do I add them? Okay. So as we're doing the back side here, I don't want you to solve it. Okay, we're going to take a few minutes in class here right now, and we're going to write an equation for questions 1, 2, and 3. Don't solve it. Just write an equation 1, 2, and 3. Okay, don't solve it. Why not? Because you're going to do plenty of algebra. You don't need to do that right this very second. 1, 2, and 3. Then stop. Write an equation. Should I set them equal or should I add them together? Okay. Okay. Keep going if you haven't finished, but some of you did the general equations and some of you used the actual like 8x plus 14 and 10x minus 4, which is perfectly fine. Here's what I wanted to see. Do you know which ones you should set equal, and do you know which ones you should add to 180 or add to 90? And you all did fantastic. You did great. Now I'm going to throw in something extra. So I'll write that in just a second, but I'm going to throw in something extra. Okay, let me slide this up here. Number 4. Is number 4 one of the 3 things we talked about today? No, it is not. Wait a minute. These 2 angles that are given to you in number 4, are they across from each other? No. Does it say the word supplementary? Does it say the word complementary? No, it is not one of the 3 we talked about today. However, do you know what to do? We kind of talked about it at the beginning. Right at the beginning of class, we used that to figure out how to do what we were doing today. So the question of the day is, are these equal or should you add them together? Should add them together. How do I know? Okay, does this angle right here, okay, which is acute, does that angle, this little guy, right, is that the same size? That's what equal means, right? Is that the same size as this one? No, I had to open my hand a little bigger, right? So those are not the same size. This one is little, this one is big. They're not the same size. And if they're not the same size, what do I do with them? I add them. Okay, to be what? All right, so let's write that down. So we're going to add these 2 together. This was not from today, so let's go over it. 5x plus x plus 42. And it's going to equal. It's going to equal what? Yesterday we learned 180 if it's a straight line. That's a straight line. Straight lines, and I'll never, ever, ever give you a line that looks straight, but it's only 189 instead of 180. I won't do that. If it looks like a straight line, it is a straight line. You can assume that. This is a straight line, so that means it's 180 degrees. So we would set that to 180. Okay, that was not from today. However, can you do it? So it takes the 3 from today, adds 1 from yesterday, and you're already at a level 2. How you feeling? Feeling okay with that? Let's add another one. If you can get to a 5, you can get 5 of them, right? Then you're at a 2.5. You're not quite at a 3, but you're at a 2.5. So here's the last one. I'm going to ask the same question. Are these 2 angles equal? Okay, are they equal? And if they are not equal, you are going to add them together. Okay, you're going to add them together to equal something else, right? So if they're not equal, the only time you can set them equal is if they are vertical angles and they look equal. Those aren't vertical. Or if it says bisect. It doesn't say that. So I'm going to add these 2 together. When I add them together, so let's go 5x plus 1 plus x plus 11 equals, and then what's my total? Sometimes the total, right? Sometimes that total is going to be 180 because it's a straight line. Sometimes that total is going to be 12x minus 7, something like that. In this case, one showed up on the homework last night that was like this, and I kind of added a little piece in. But in this case, it's going to equal this box. You remember what we said yesterday the box was? 90 degrees. So in this one right here, this is 90 degrees because it's on the picture as 90 degrees. So I'm going to set it equal to 90 degrees. Okay. Let's talk about the 3 that I asked you to do. Let's make sure you're good with those, and then we'll finish up all the way through equations and reasons for all of them. Okay, so starting back up at the top here, you should have set those equal. So it should look like this. If you don't have this written down, you can write it down, but most of you had at least half of this. So we've got 10x minus 4. That equals 8x plus 14. Okay, that right there can get you a 1, a 2, or a 3, right? If you can get that, if you can solve it correctly. If you're not solving several of them correctly, that's not a 3. So you definitely want to make sure you at least attempt the general equations and the reasons, so I can try to give you a little bit more credit. Okay, so then the next part is with the general equation, has to have this little m angle symbol. It has to be there. And then we need the letters. So the letters for 10x minus 4 is R, E, A. What if you had A, E, R? That's okay. Forward and backwards, those are the same thing. And then an equal sign, because you set them equal. And now do the other side. The other side, I'm going to do G, E, T. Little m, angle symbol, G, E, T. And then what kind of angles are those? Get used to the 6 words that you need to know. Okay? 3 of them are not going to be super difficult because the word is going to be in the problem. But the other 3 you have to know. The other 3 that you have to know without being told anything on the picture is vertical angles, linear pair, and angle addition. Okay, those are the 3. These, I did not add angles together, so it's not that. Right? They are across from each other, so those are vertical. Even though sometimes they're horizontally across from each other, right? So I understand that can sometimes be a little tricky, but those are vertical angles. And then that has to have a theorem behind it. Okay, then you went over to the next one, and we wrote down that these 2 angles, we can start right at the top because it tells me in the first sentence how to write the general equation, what the reason is, and how to write out my equation. It tells you right here. You're going to say measure of this angle plus measure of this angle equals 180 for supplementary. It tells you right there how to write out that first equation. So we can go measure angle APE plus measure angle EPB equals 180. This is what I was talking about. When you know your 6 reasons, 3 of them are going to be in the problem. Definition of. This word is going to be there, and then we just write definition of that word. Definition of supplementary goes right in there. Definition of I would venture to guess that some of you can combine like terms like in your head. So when you go to actually do this problem and you're substituting in, if you want to combine your like terms, 5 and 4 is 9x plus 22 plus 5 is 27 equals 180. That is an okay equation. If you want to skip a step and go ahead and combine your like terms before you even write it down, that's okay. Okay, just as an FYI. Okay, so then the next one down. And again, the solving of that, and if you wrote them separately, that's totally fine too, right? 5x plus 22 plus 4x plus 5 equals 180. That's fine. So then this one down here should be a measure of pi, P-I-E, plus the measure of fun is 90. It also has a vocabulary word, so it's definition of. And then substitute those in. Again, you can add those 2 together. 20x plus 10 equals 90 if you want. That's fine to go ahead and do that first step before you even write it down. So that's kind of what I went around to check. Some of you had this, some of you had this. It doesn't matter. Some of us put this in there, some of us didn't. It's okay. I just want to make sure everybody had the same thing. Okay, then what is this? Okay, that is the one that we talked about yesterday, and it is a pair of angles. There's two of them. It's a pair of angles that makes a straight line. So the name for that is linear pair. And because it's not definition of, it's a theorem. General equation. Again, take the two things that you did and write them down. So linear pair, 5x came from RQS. Measure angle RQS. Plus, and then RQP is where I got the other one from. And then right here, 180. I'm going to always put 180. You could arguably put PQS, measure of angle PQS, which is that whole line thing, but I'm just going to put 180 because it's easier to write. And then the last one. Okay, what's going to happen on this last one is it's going to be super tempting to write complementary because it says 90 right here, right? So like definition of complementary. The only time you get to use definition of is if that word showed up in the problem. It doesn't say complementary. It doesn't say supplementary. It doesn't say bisects. So we have to use angle addition. So linear pair and vertical are the two that you can see visually. If you see them across from each other, they're vertical. If you see them next to each other being 180 degrees, that's linear pair. And if it's nothing else, that's our angle addition. That one is actually a postulate, not a theorem, but it's okay if you wrote theorem. There's no penalty for writing postulate versus theorem. It's a small distinction between the two of them that you only need to know if you're going to major in math in college. So, and you'll learn it in college if you need it. So the general equation then would be these angles here. I'll go ABD, measure of angle ABD plus measure of angle DBC. And because we're doing angle addition, we have to set it equal to the full angle, which is ABC. Then we're going to continue just practicing all 6 of those tomorrow. So what we're going to do tomorrow in class is I'm going to hand you 4 problems, 4 of them, not all 6 of them. And we're just going to see if you can figure out which of the 6 that you've been given. And then I'm going to give you the rest of the class to work. Okay, so we're just going to do that at the beginning of class. And then you have the rest of the time to work and make sure that your packet is finished and complete all the way through homework 7. Okay, so homework 7 is what we talked about today. You are fully capable of doing it when you walk out of this room. However, like I said, you will get some time tomorrow in class to work on it. So it's up to you how much you get done or how much you do today. Okay. Okay.